Hello and welcome to DAMA India live event powered by Data Ki Baat. Yes, it is organized by Data Ki Baat, but it is dedicated to DAMA India community. So we have an interesting topic today and equally interesting guest from DAMA South Africa. The event is also unique in the sense that it is first ever event for DAMA India, and it is also a start of a journey that I thought could be a great way to promote inter-chapter collaboration, right? I think it has never been tried before. So the goal is to really make sure that from the DAMA India standpoint, invite each and every DAMA international chapters across the world to come talk about their journey, talk about the chapter, how did they grow, and any learning that could be given back to the other chapter across the world. So it is a great opportunity to virtually visit India and also interact with the great community out here, right? So I will come back to the topic now because today's topic, as I said, is really interesting. It's a common topic for everybody, not really dedicated to data, but it is about data community. How to build data community, how to grow it, what are the different challenges, and that's really what topic we are going to talk about today. And for that, I have invited a very interesting guest from DAMA SA, as I said. So without any further delay, let's welcome Howard Diesel from DAMA South Africa.
Sanjeev,
Howard,
how are you doing? Thank you very much. Thank you. Very nice to be here with you.
Thank you very much for your acceptance to join and basically inaugurate the first ever event of DAMA India, right? So we would not delay because that's a great topic and we will never realize that how the time really flown by, right? Yes. So let's start with your journey as such, building South Africa data community, and then we can get into the conversation.
Sure. So we have a slide on slide 11 where we talk about how we started. We started in 2009. We've been going a long time, and I just realized when you spoke that it's amazing how long we've been going, and we almost don't remember what it was like to start. But I must admit that we've gone through a long journey, and we've had our challenges along the way. We actually had a really important person, the president, that left and went over to the UK. She immigrated, and we almost broke down the community, or it broke down at that time, and we had to start rebuilding. So it was like a refresh and a restart. And that was hard for us, getting to understand everything, getting back on the CDMP, getting on the training. So that was really challenging, but it's been fantastic. And I looked back whilst we were preparing for this talk, and I thought about how much the pandemic has helped us as well, where previously we only had really two areas, one down in Cape Town and one in Johannesburg. And lots of people from Bloemfontein and Durban were saying, how do we get involved? Why is nobody paying attention? And we just could never get it going. But now with the pandemic, it's been fantastic, where not just are we getting everybody in South Africa talking, but we actually got people from all over the world, which has been fantastic as well. And it's really amazing that we're talking to DAMA India today, just to be able to see how much we can share. So that's been fantastic. Our groups, our online community has been growing really well. I think at one stage we had eight different meetups. We've had to consolidate that and get things going and more structured. We've had some lovely collaboration with ISO and with DAMA EMEA and DAMA International, working on the data architecture exams, working on the ISO data classification. And this is really nice in terms of bringing the community together, giving them opportunities to grow and to understand what it is all about for data management. So can certainly recommend that you stretch the people you get involved with as many of the communities as possible. You've done that.
Right.
And that's nice. I think it's really great that you're reaching out and connecting with the different communities. I think we do get a bit isolated.
Yeah.
Just the other day, we had Mark Nolte from DAMA Calgary, and after the meetup, we actually spent 45 minutes talking just about the challenges that they have and what they're trying to achieve, and the fantastic work that Mark's doing there. So that's been great, and it's been lovely talking to you as well.
Thank you. Yep. I think as you talked about reaching out, and so the idea is that I will pick up a word like isolated, right? We definitely do have a community, but obviously it is spread across. During the pandemic, it kind of really become more isolated, right? I mean, there is definitely thriving communities across the world. One of the thriving community that I keep hearing about is yours, data community of South Africa, because
Yeah.
I think there are a lot that goes on over there, right? So we will talk about that journey as such. But why community? I mean, I always feel that there is a lot that is being talked about. We keep just referring that okay, community is required, but then what is your take on that? Why community? Why? I mean, why do we need that even?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we've actually been sharing with it quite a bit this month in terms of establishing a community of practice.
Mm-hmm.
And to give you a little bit of background, when we started, most of our focus was on data governance, because we had some of the strong people doing data governance. And I was challenged by one of my friends who's the communication director on the DAMA Southern African board. And he said, guys, we've got to stop just talking about governance. We need to talk about other things like data modeling, data architecture, reference data, and master data. And you start to realize how important it is to include everybody in the discussion, so that different people and certainly different knowledge areas almost have different personas. So your reference data and your master data people, they have that common way of thinking, the common way of understanding, and they like to share their stories. And it's really helpful to see those people grow. I've met so many people when we opened up the data modeling community that I'd never met before, because they just didn't feel like they could talk about governance, or maybe they weren't interested in governance. So being able to work with them, talk about an area of data that they love and they're passionate about, that's fantastic. And then you just see the growth happening within these people. And of course, what we all want to do is get these people so excited and experienced that they're happy to contribute on the international stage, on some of the big conferences like EDW. That's fantastic when we see people taking that step.
Right. So I mean, we do also hear about society, right? I mean, society and community, right? So what I feel, Howard, I mean, I would be really glad to hear your thought, right? Society is really a bigger term, I mean, bigger setup. But
Yes.
when it comes to community, what happens is that it becomes really narrower, and it is
Yes.
now basically your choice. Society is not your choice. You are
Yes.
part of society by default.
Yes.
You're part of it. But when
Yes.
community happens, right, you can always choose, right? So
Yes.
what are the different, I think I'll not call psychology and make it overcomplicated, but I'm just thinking that what are the various drivers that you kept so that people are willing to join data
Right.
community? They choose it, right? Because it's a choice. It's not like
Yes.
by default.
Yes.
No?
That's a good question, and something that we had to challenge ourselves when we started doing some of the presentations, and we're realizing that the numbers were dropping. It's almost, why is it? Have they been hearing it too much? Is it whatever it is? And we did start to realize that when the people were discussing the areas that they were passionate about, and they wanted to be part of it and they wanted to learn, that was when we got the best engagement. So we made a decision of our meetup groups, and we call it being helpful. So if we're not presenting something that's helpful, a lot of people want to be able to take what they've learned and apply it tomorrow when they go back to work. So how do I build this dimensional data warehouse. We had a lovely talk on unified star schema by Francesco Pupini. And it was almost, we were battling with these areas in data warehouse, and tomorrow, the next day, we could apply it in our work, in our jobs. And we found that to be the big difference when they're seeing that the impact of the discussions is changing their way of thinking. And I always love this talk that we had. Was we shared it with I built this data warehouse and I shared it with a professional, a BI professional, and he said, let me restructure it because it's not the way that I do it and it's not the right way. And sometimes we stop learning. We keep on doing the same thing over and over for many years, the Kimball approach. And we realize that we've actually sometimes got to take a step back and say, that is not as good as it can be and it should be. And it's people like yourselves, when we get into these interactions, that challenge us to say, no, there's a better way. And that's when we start enjoying the community and we start realizing there's value to us. So keep that in your head, like, how can I be helpful to the people tomorrow? That when they go to the office or when they're doing something right now, are we helpful and are we relating to the issues?
Wow. It's so simply presented, Howard. How do we become helpful, right? So basically the crux of the matter is that if you're continuously adding value, and if that values align with what the community member values are, then probably you are kind of going to really attract more and more people.
Yes.
Very nicely put together. So, but then it is a journey, right? Community building is creative act in my mind, right? I may be wrong, but this is Sanjeev, thinking. I have experienced that it is really creative work. There may be a science to it, but it is more of an art, right?
Yes.
So, and it's journey, as I said, right? So there, when you're doing this kind of a journey, which is like dealing with the people, what they think, what their value systems are, what they aspires to become, all of those factors, right? There are bound to be challenges, right?
Yeah.
So you being in the forefront of building this whole community system, what were your experience, challenges, learning, all of those we would love to know.
Yeah, great question. And as I said to you, remember I said earlier on where we almost had 6 meetup groups and we had to bring them down to 3. And part of that learning experience was that I was so passionate about all sorts of stuff, about data-centric architecture and things that David McComb had challenged us in terms of, do we need to restructure the DMBOK? And it's like, wow, we got to look at this. But I think I was trying to do a lot of it on my own. And I had to come back and I had to find out who will lead this group and not just Howard Diesel. So when we started data privacy, then we had a lady called Caroline Mouton that she was passionate about it. When we started big data and data science, that was Drew Kennedy and Mishima. And so when we had those people to run with it and those people that were passionate about their community, then we had the success and the growth that we wanted to have. So it was not about one person doing it. And I think too many of us presidents, we fall into this trap of, because we're so passionate and we can do so much, we want to do it and we run with it and we don't bring the people with us. So sometimes we've got to stop, go back and say, who's going to run with this thing? Of course, you need to make sure that this person is going to stay the journey and stay the path. And it's that lesson that we had to learn in terms of saying, yeah, we can open up these things tomorrow and we're having success in terms of having these small persona communities, but is it sustainable? Can we keep that group going forever and keep on building? And there's a slide on slide 10 about this maturity of the community. And you can see what's happened to us. And we actually, so it's one slide back, we actually had it where we dropped off around about 2015. You can see that South Africa, the South African community went through a tough time. And so we had to restart. And there's a lovely slide there. As you matured, you see that the dotted line, we actually went down and we had to rebuild. And so how do we get ourselves to be self-sustaining? And you're self-sustaining when there are individual people that have taken on that group, that then build a few people around them that are then able to run with it, and they don't need to have one person propping it up and keep on running. So there's this challenge that we're going, and I love Peter Jackson shared that with us in terms of data strategy, is almost that hype cycle that we build. And as presidents, we build the hype cycle around our chapter, and now we need to keep that thing going. So it's fantastic when we start. There's so much people want to do it and get going, but how do we keep it in a self-sustaining mode, and how do you get the people around you that are driving it on themselves? So I had some other things about not just focusing on building a court or talking to people that want to hear from you, Howard Diesel, but how do they hear from others that are passionate and can drive it? Bringing on international speakers, that's a fantastic way of sharing some of that. I just saw the passion that people had when they were listening to Scott Taylor on Wednesday, and he shared that, and people were just, wow, this is so invigorating. And sometimes I feel, but am I not invigorating? What's wrong with me? But I think it's important that we share this growth period, that people can talk and share, and we bring on the thought leaders, and we just got to share. We got to share this and not try to hold that in control. It's about getting all the members to participate and to become part of the group.
Wow. I mean, I just want to keep hearing you. Great, great insights. But while you were talking, right, there are a lot of thoughts that is coming in my mind, and I would like to take this opportunity to at least share a couple of them. It is all about you speaking today, so I will stay away. So first of all, I will take this opportunity to at least name 3 people, very specifically, as you talked about, and I'm so happy that you brought this point, and we are exactly doing that. We are,
Yes.
we have grown fast as well in India. At one fine day, we only had 0, nobody, and then now we have around 165 plus or something. Lot of good engagement, and it's all within probably a month, or maybe 1.5 months or 2. That is it. So 3 more people, right? I want to name that. One, Nishu Jan. She leads that member and community building, corporate relationship, and all of those. We have Hemant Gupta, who is basically looking at all the digitization need that we have. Otherwise, we will not be able to drive anything.
Yes.
Right? And then we have Rabiul Khan. He is leading the entire training space, CDMP, and making sure that people are knowing the TM walk and all of those. So and again, the main focus is to really drive that with people and not let the passion and enthusiasm comes on the way, like you rightly said. That's a guiding principle that we are following, and there are some good key players out there. And one of the name that I took said hi to you as well. So
hi.
so that's great. Hi Nishu. So thanks for being there. And the other thing that I also picked up from your conversation is that how can we make the whole community. I always tell that, right? There are class and there are mass. There are classes and masses, right? So obviously, as you're talking about people like you, Scott Taylor, people. So they are basically class, right? We have to definitely have them speak, share, motivate. But then there are masses, and there are large number of masses. Right?
Yes.
And community is all about masses, right? So our focus is also to make sure that how we can make them participate, and that's where this platform thinking comes into the picture. The platform thinking is basically making everybody participate and create a sustaining platform rather than individual platform, or maybe it's Sanjeev only or Nishu only or anybody else.
Yes.
So great thought. I think I just reiterated. I'm really so happy that you brought this point. Great. So we will move our conversation ahead a little bit. And
sorry, Sanjeev, could I really like what you were saying, and I like the way that you've set up your team, and it talks to something we spoke about, getting your structure right within the chapter. And the three areas that we saw as core when we set it back up again is our privacy, ethics, and governance, and that was really helpful to keep us all in check and balance. I think we find that very beneficial. And then we saw education and communication. Those are our core aspects to our chapter. And this aligns with what you've just shared with the people that you've shared. Is education is paramount, and the DMBOK and the CDMP have done a fantastic job for us. I was blown away 6 years ago, or no, it was longer, 9 years ago when I saw it for the first time. I'd been in the game for 30 years, and I saw the DMBOK 9-10 years ago, and I couldn't believe that I'd missed it. And so I'm also cautious of making sure people see it. And then it's sharing the message. So those three areas that you've established are paramount within the chapters, and getting that word shared.
Yep. No, great. I think thanks for the notice, and thanks for bringing that up. So there is a need for speed. That's what we realize, and that's what we every day we talk. So today also when we were talking about we have to look at good enough and not wait for the best at the beginning.
Yes.
Good enough should we just move on with that, right? Otherwise, there will be a lot of analysis paralysis. There will be a lot of thoughts and then discussion, and nothing would happen. And so that's where the entire team is driving. Everybody kind of understand that piece, though we still I keep calling method in the madness, but then method should not stop you so much, So great. Okay, interesting. I think I'm so happy that we are talking this subject, which is very important. People,
yes,
right? People, process, technology. I give a lot of importance to people aspect. So okay, so moving on, right? We talked about how journey, challenges, going up and coming down the graph kind of keeps moving, and it's a good sign, by the way, right? We go up and we come down, and then we kind of sustain and things like that. I like this graph so much here. How about during that journey? How about those best practices that you kind of set for your community? Because while you're learning, going up and then coming down, and then you're tweaking and then moving up, would you like to talk about those quick tips and tricks?
Sure. The thing I had to work on first was losing the what I call losing the volunteer mentality.
Okay.
Now it's one of the hardest aspects that we have, is that yes, we all have day jobs, and that's what keeps us paying, and sometimes we can excuse bad performance because we volunteers. This is something that I had to shake, and I know I was actually part of the SQL user group, SQL Pass. Unfortunately, they've just disappeared. Almost, what was it, in December they closed. They've been running for 16 years.
I know.
It was a fantastic community, and I was heartbroken in a way that they closed. But these things happen.
I'll stop you there a little bit, right? SQL Pass is one place that I used to visit every time. By profession, I used to be a DBA, SQL Server DBA.
Yes.
I was like a regular visitor, and I realized today, and you're telling me that it is closed. So sad.
And I think that's why we get on so well, because I always have done so much work in DBA, and I still enjoy it. It sort of keeps my feet on the ground. I always joke with the architects that they breathe a different air, but so the first thing for me was losing that volunteer mentality. So that meant that it's if people send an email to your website, yes, I understand that we can't always guarantee that, and we would like to sort of say 48 hours, but people want that sort of answer, and they build a negative view of you when you slow in your response. And it's helpful to say, guys, we have to keep on responding. And I remember when I started, I stopped that, and I, even though I was working, if I got an email through the DAMA, I actually had all the DAMA emails directed to me. And when I got a request for help, it would be almost as quickly as possible I would respond. Even if that meant me working longer at the work I had to do, I had to keep responding and start talking to the people, because they almost felt as if we had lost connection with the people out there. And in some cases, the people come to you desperate to say, I've got to get this thing done. I need to know. And we sometimes water that down. So that was, I please, I'm not saying anything about anybody. Volunteers, it's hard. It's that effort. It takes a lot of effort. But we have to be careful of falling on the other side where it can be 3, 4, 5 weeks and we haven't got back to people. So that was something that I'd certainly all the board people I get we volunteers, but let's try to be a little bit committed and find ways and manage our time so that we can talk to the people and we can respond to them, because they almost feel as if they're in a vacuum and they've got no one to talk to. And when we reach out and interact, then the differences come around. So that was the one side. The next area, and I've mentioned it a bit, was getting stuck in governance. It's almost as if the governance people create these communities. Now, I know this, and we tend to say we're all talking about governance. We're all talking about data privacy or this or that, and how do we build the communication plan and socialization and things like that. And I was challenged to say, guys, get the other people involved, get the DBAs involved, get them to come and talk to you. And how many DBAs do we have attending our meetings? Because sometimes we think it's SQL Server or Oracle or stuff like that. How do we reach out to those DBAs and say there's more to it than just the one technology base? How do we understand across all technologies, and how do we bring those people in? Some of the other best practices was realizing that our people, the language and the communities develop around what I've seen as the knowledge areas. And I love that thing to be able to say, I've got 11 knowledge areas, and all I'm doing is paying attention to the one. So how do I now grow that? Scott Taylor made an interesting comment about how sometimes we have these fights between analytics and data engineering, and people only say, oh, you know what, the data is only valuable when we get insights. But guys, the data is valuable when it arrives. And how do we grow it, and how do we add that value? So it's not fighting between the two and trying to say this one's better than the other one, but it's every single one building and growing together. The next one that really challenged me was monitoring the growth. And if you go to slide 8, we actually created Meetup. That's something else that some of the chapters get worried about in terms of having formal platforms, learning management systems and things like that. That encouragement of seeing the growth like that, where we go from 100 or 0 to 116, or we grow from, in some cases where we grew from 200 to 1,500, where we're sitting, that's so encouraging. And then the people start to develop around that. They see that it's engaging. I was talking to Dylan the other day, and he was talking about the growth on his LinkedIn group, of how it's gone to 5,000, 9,000, 10,000, and how the engagement starts to happen. And that's where we start seeing it's not social, it's by choice. And these areas get the life of their own. The other thing that I found, and the IIBA taught me this, was saying, stop focusing on the fees and the members and that, and allow people to come in and experience who you are and join when they want to join. So let them come forward and say, I want to be a member. Here's my membership fees. And sometimes we say, well, where's your membership fees? And then I'll let you in. And so we get smaller and smaller. In the other way, let's turn it around and say, let's open it up. There are so many IIBA, ISACA, all these people, even the Institute of Industrial Engineering came to me the other day and said, we want to talk about data. I said, fantastic, let's talk about it. Let's share about it. We're not just here for ourselves, we're also here to connect to some of the other groups.
Golden advice. I think all of those can definitely become a guiding principle for anybody
Yeah.
forming a community. One of the pick that I did, all the points are golden nuggets definitely, but couple of picks that I did while you were speaking is right. Delivering the value first and then expecting the value,
Yeah.
because if you keep talking about fee, revenue, all those good things that people get driven first on day one, it might just not help.
Yes.
And very interestingly, today's my weekends are dedicated to all of this that I do, either Data
Yeah.
Ki Baat or DAMA. Uh, Very interesting conversation, and just a coincidence. I thought I'll share that, and it's all about how do we own it like a product. So
Yes.
if you're talking about
Yes.
certification, then you have to have a product manager for that.
Yes.
But at this moment, we have been discussing that let's not focus on the price. Let the community tell the price. You just talk about the value,
Yes.
right?
And
If you
and
if you talk
demonstrate that value and show them the value. Yeah.
correct, so we have taken that piece away of the whole conversation at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We are not
Good.
going to talk about if because then people will go and take themselves, make themselves aloof
Yes.
even before joining the community, because price, no matter whom you are talking to, it's very close to people, heart and mind, both,
Yes.
right? And I thought that's a great point. And also monitoring the growth, it's very important,
Oof.
because if you don't know where are you going, any road is fine. Somebody told that long back, one wise man. I don't know who is that, but if you're not going, if you don't know where are you going, any road is fine, right?
Yes.
So monitoring our growth is very important. And again, coincidentally, we talked about it, that how it was zero one day, just on the LinkedIn, and now it is 164 people
Yeah.
talking to each other, doing the conversation, commenting, asking question, a lot of them offline, online. I think it's great achievement. We already had the launch event. We are having the first ever event here, and then we plan to do a lot more. And then
Mm.
knowledge areas. Howard, it's a great point. There
Yeah.
are 12 knowledge area. Why are we only talking about one piece? So how
Yes.
can we spread across? Is a great point. Awesome, awesome.
And
So
I think it's helpful when we talk of monitoring, if you can get a point of monitoring your people's attendance. I remember many years ago we renewed our CDMP certification by recording the number of events that we attended, the number of events we spoke about, and things like that. So it's also helpful to have a platform where you can show the people that this, you've done a fantastic job. Look at how many meetings you've attended, where you've presented, where you've spoken about, so to allow them to get into that monitoring of their growth.
yep. By the way, somebody just loved it. Great discussion. Please share recording of this. I cannot read the name. It says LinkedIn user, but
Yes.
I thank you for your comment here. And as soon as the live ends, it will be available for you to watch anytime, and we will also share it after that discussion as well. So Howard, CDMP certification, it's a great, I think, great interest for anybody, right?
Yep.
I'll tell you one of my, experience, and then DAMA India, initiative here, right? I don't know how did you do in the SA side, but please do mention and share with me. So nobody ever tried to know that how many CDMP certified are there in India. Nobody. And we are taking that survey. We are trying to understand who are, because those are the people that we need first,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because they're already advocate, because they're already a believer, right? Why not talk to them? Why not bring them first? And then we want to make sure that they are known and felicitated, and we will do
Yes.
that's our next drive. And once we know them, and we kind of bring them on front and in the light, I think that's what I want to drive this whole mass concept that I'm talking about. How did you approach CDMP certification, Howard? I know we are very, it's very interesting conversation, and we are already 35 minutes. I don't think we realize that.
Oh,
So,
yeah. So I was challenged by our marketing people. It's amazing how people outside of your area know how to push your buttons and challenge you. And the one person, Craig Stewart, that we've actually brought on as an advisor to us, he said, if I search in LinkedIn for the people in South Africa that have CDMP, how many do you think I have? And then what are my growth patterns of that on the way? And I think that's there's also that way of helping us gauge our community's growth, is when people are sharing that certification and that CDMP along the way. So that's a great way for you guys to do it and keep on building and keep on monitoring, putting it up on your website in terms of how many LinkedIn people do we have that have registered CDMP. I think it's also important there in terms of understanding these different levels between associate, practitioner, and master. And what does it mean? Sometimes there's quite a lot of confusion as to, I can get a CDMP, I write my first fundamentals, and then I'm an associate, but I actually scored a practitioner or a master score. And so some of those badges are working really well for us. People are getting really excited about putting their badge up. So that's a great thing. And it's something that we've been noticing, Sanjeev, is lately, within the last 4 or 5 years, the demand for certification is growing tremendously.
Very much.
And I think it's also within India, but certainly in South Africa. And I must admit, we're rather embarrassed about Africa, because it's just South Africa, and I know DAMA Botswana is starting up. They're forming community, and it's looking at all our neighbors and our people around us to say, how are we progressing as certified data management professionals? And that's what I find is important, is, how do we call ourselves a professional? How do we recognize that we have this basic understanding of the fundamentals? I'm not saying that means that you can do your job and you should get hired just because you got a CDMP, but I'm certainly seeing a lot of my customers, when they go out on tenders, RFPs, they're saying, where is your data management certification? Show me. Of your team that you're going to bring onto my company and performs this project, show me the certifications. So growing that certification, the demand is there. You've got to work on it. I promise you that's something that will keep your training, even sometimes in the difficult periods. I'm not sure what it's like in Europe, but in South Africa, December, January is a nightmare in terms of that level of training. People have just had enough. It's now done. And we're seeing that this CDMP certification is driving people to write the exams, to keep on developing themselves in a professional way, almost lifelong learning. If we can establish this a path, and we've got something where we climb Mount Everest, and I think I may have shared with you, and we sort of go, the trek is when you land at the airport. I forget it now. My wife did a fantastic job, and you go to the base camp of Everest, and then how do you get to Camp 1 and Camp 2? So this is my level, my fundamentals, then it's my specialist exam 1, specialist exam 2, and how do I get to become, at the top when I'm talking at conferences? So a really nice way of putting the path down, building that excitement, sharing the metaphor of growing your career and establishing yourself within the community.
Great. No, I think I was talking to Dr. Anne Mary about how the need for growing the keeping up with your professional education, and we talked a lot about CDMP. It was a fantastic conversation. I think there is a recording in place. There are a lot of interest in that, and we did talk about how this is one key, could be a key piece that can attach and make people connect because of the interest, obviously. And there is always a desire in the people, especially in data community, that how do I be on top of what is the best at this moment, and CDMP is definitely one of those, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, if we and it's always nice to present that path, because I find sometimes with communities of practice, there is a desire to grow the people. That's why we're here. That's why you establish DAMA India, is to grow the youngsters. So it's not just for us that have been around 20, 30 years. We don't need to make that jump, but the youngsters, their growth and their recognition of what they've achieved is phenomenal. And how you can encourage them and get them moving along, it's amazing to see that. On the downside, and I wanted to share that with you, is we are training a lot, but it's then writing the exam, and it's, so the people are investing, but we're finding a big drop off to those that, okay, now let's write the exam. So you also have to try to reduce the gap between when you train someone to when they write. And we're finding so many people, so many different people. We have a lovely lady from Mozambique, and she shared our story about her doing the PMBOK and how much she had to study afterwards. And she's that sort of person. She wants to be a master. She doesn't want to be any associate or practitioner. She's got to be a master and better. And so we build study groups. So we write the exam. We try to get it in the beginning of the month, and then we have a 2-week study group where it's happening at lunchtime. And so every lunchtime we do a chapter, and we almost set aside 14 days for people to review it, people to go through it, and then we look to write at the end of the month. So see if you can also get that rhythm going of walking people through the journey. Chris Bradley does a great job in terms of doing the training and then writing on the last day. Now, that it does require quite a bit of setup, and it's helpful to get hold of the cdmp.info. We got some guys doing a fantastic job, Karen, and the people in Australia, they're doing a really great job. They're great support where you can set up group writing. You can get some of the payments done, and you can just make that process a lot smoother. So that helps you get the people through the pipeline.
Right.
So we can certainly help you. Veronica's done a fantastic job, and there's so much support in the cdmp.info to help you get the groups through.
Great. I will definitely. I just know. Obviously, I keep taking notes when I hear. There is one more thing that I'm trying to do, is that how can I make this transcript available? Because sometimes it is really hard to get along with the video. But reading is much more easier sometimes. Video is a great way. So I'm trying that. I think some of the points that I have noted, I think I'm gonna just publish that. And I just loved this conversation. As I keep saying, we are really talking in an intense conversation, and there are less time that we have today. What I will do is that before you say bye to us, India community, any parting thoughts, Howard? I know we can probably talk endlessly and still add value, but anything that you want to leave us with today?
So the last thing that I think is helpful, Sanjeev, is that you as the board start to make yourselves available to your corporate members.
Okay.
And go and spend time with them, just talking. Not about all sorts of fancy stuff and trying to find work and things like that. No, it's about how do I take some of this community that we're building, and how do we build a microcosm of those communities within the companies. They are also battling to get the energy and people seeing this as a career, and not just, oh shucks, I want to be a manager, or I want to be. No, you can be specialists and thought leaders within your company. So it's up to the DAMA board, especially DAMA India, to go and spend time with the corporates and share this insight and share the ability to grow and help the people grow and benefit from this. Because data is there. Data is a fundamental. The data engineering skills, the data quality skills, the metadata, the semantics, it's there. And how do we bring this message to our organizations? We have so many members that say, please, Howard, just come and talk to my boss. Just come and talk to the CEO. Come and talk to these people about how important that is. And of course, we have to be careful of not going in there as religious DAMA, whatever it is. That's not the issue. But it is about bringing the message to the corporates as well, so that they see the value of having 20, 30, 40 members within DAMA India and connected to DAMA India. How much value are we giving to those organizations? What can we impart? What sort of knowledge can we impart with the corporates?
Great, awesome. I think all of those points are valid and rightly, right on time when we really need that, right? And that's the reason I thought I will start with the community building, because that's what we are doing. So Howard, these are all valuable thoughts. Definitely people can benefit out of it. A video will be available. I will be publishing the transcript also. That requires some work, so it takes time. But video is readily going to be available, and we will also share after this call with everybody as an offline kind of a campaign, so to say. So thank you very much for your time today, and wish you all the best again with the SA community, already thriving. But we wish that you grow and take it, far.
Let's stick together. Let's do it together. Yeah.
Thanks, Howard, for your time today, and thank you everyone for watching. DAMA India's first ever live in collaboration with Data Ki Baat. We talked a lot about community. There are key points that we touched: is why community is required, how to build one, what connects community together, what are the various best practices, what are the different challenges that you will face, and how to deal with that. So thank you very much again, and bye for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanjeev.